My name's Julia Louise, I'm an artist, and welcome to my studio. I only just finished remodeling this space, so let me show you around.
Ooh, so pretty. When I moved in, this was just a dark, dirty garage with a spider problem. Now it's a bright, light studio space with a bit of a spider problem. But now at least my cat is helping me to keep them at bay because she likes coming in here from all the changes. The first thing I did was to reseal the garage floor. The old paint job had lots of rust and cracks in it, plus it cast a strong enough color tone around the room that it messed with my color mixing. Fun fact about me as an artist, I'm super into colors. I try to mix my paints vividly, and I really rely on being able to see the subtle undertones of each color in order to capture it exactly. So, in the name of color accuracy, I also painted all the walls and the ceiling a very bright and flat white. My idea was to make this whole room sort of a softbox for the lighting. I don't want glare or color cast bouncing around too far, so I picked the flattest matte paint, and it took 5 coats to cover the old white with the new white. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself because before I painted the walls and ceiling, I installed my custom art systems. I've been dreaming about a studio space of my own for so long. I've been working in closets. I've been working in a corner of the kitchen table that I would have to clean up if my roommates ever had anyone over. And so I had a pretty established Pinterest board full of different studios and organizational systems. One idea that I just absolutely knew I had to use were these peg hanging boards. I used to have just a whole bunch of nails in the wall at different heights, but now I can move my canvases up and down and sideways as far as I want. I can even work on more than one painting at a time, depending on their sizes. And because oil paint takes months to dry fully, I used the same hanging system over on the other wall. I can hang a bunch of paintings up at once here, and they'll get to dry in peace behind this sheet. The sheet works as 2 things. Primarily, it safeguards the paintings so they can dry without dust floating in and getting in the paint. And second, it works as a backdrop for photography. I can photograph my paintings and my sculptures and my husband and myself. It's just really nice to have this blank space here. Another custom thing I made are these oil paint holders. I've looked online for a long time for something like this and never found exactly what I was looking for, so I just made them. And I thought that I was making plenty when I made 2, but I already need a 3rd to hold all the paints I'm planning on getting the big tube version of. But for now, I've got these 2, and I really love how they turned out. I used a scroll saw at first to cut the shapes out, and that did not go well for me. So some of the gaps are a little bigger than they should be, but nothing's fallen off yet. The wall hangers are for the paints that I'm making palette grids with. They're basically going to be the classic oil paint palette, and then I'm adding a bunch of colors I find myself using a lot in my work or want to be using a lot in my work. The goal is to eventually have palettes that show all the colors mixed with every other color, and that is a hell of a lot of palettes. I'm not even a quarter of the way through, but here's what I do have. This cupboard, by the way, is just a folding shelf I got a few years ago and have moved around some. I think it works really well here to hold my mediums and my paint palettes and anything else I use super regularly. I use the table for mixing up paints, and I like that I can fold the table up if I ever need more room, and I frequently need more room. Next to this is one of my favorite impulsive DIYs. When we moved in, we sadly discovered that my husband's childhood dresser didn't fit in the closet, and I couldn't just throw it out because it was a solid wood dresser. So when he replaced his dresser, I recycled it into this, kind of a canvas and sketchbook organizer with a bit of a surface area. I did not have this vision when I started hacking at this thing with my little 5-inch battery-powered circular saw, but I stumbled into the vision when I started, and now I love it. This other piece here is someone's old diaper changing table that I got off Facebook Marketplace. When I met with the woman to pick this up, she gave me a little bit of information about its history. It was a hand-built gift from her ex-husband, and when she told me that, I offered my condolences, mostly out of not knowing what else to say. She quickly corrected me and said it was actually good riddance, that he was not the man she married, because the man she married wouldn't have walked out on her and their 3 children. So she was very happy to get rid of all of his old gifts, and I was very happy to receive it. That's legitimately why I love Marketplace so much. Every piece there comes from something. Furniture's got memories in it. And now this furniture is serving me perfectly as another organizing space for my diverse hobbies, or as I like to call it, my old hyperfixations. I painted this, the dresser, and the shelf all the same flat white as the rest of the room. I also painted the wall wire organizers just so everything would blend together and give off as much of that soft box reflected light as possible. Which brings me to the lighting. Since color vibrancy is so important to my work, I had to do some research about the lighting. I learned all about CRI, which stands for Color Rendering Index, as well as light temperature, wattage, and lumens. I decided on these LED strips, partially for price, partially for installation, and mostly for their 95 plus CRI. But I couldn't just put up strip lights, raw, on the ceiling of my dream studio. So I routed 32 feet of wood strips and cut them at a slight angle to get the light going the direction I needed. I installed them with a few screws and then just stuck the lead strips in the routed groove. It actually came together really well, and I'm super proud. The cord and adapter part stapled to the ceiling over here, I'm a little less proud of. It's really hard to paint a round cord, but I think the overall effect is good, as long as you don't examine it too closely. That's the real studio part of the studio. Then I have the washer and dryer, obviously, some organizational areas. This shelf here is actually mostly more art supplies, but I didn't want to try to paint this white, so I grouped it more on the house side. To give a little separation of the spaces, with a little bit of flair, I cut up and taped down an old rug, and it's much nicer to stand on than the concrete when you're doing laundry. It gives a very homey feel. Then on this wall, I've just got my office organizations and a hanger for my paint apron. I used to put my apron on my chair, but one time I put it on and I felt a large spider crawling around on me, so now I hang it on the wall. These long boards are all functional, except this one, obviously. I embroidered that design. It was so bright and so beautiful, and then I made a mistake and I epoxied it to the board. It was a good idea, but I didn't realize how dark and desaturated embroidery thread becomes when it's wet, and epoxy makes it look permanently wet. It's still pretty, but I lost steam for the board build when I saw how dull all the colors got. But the sea glass looking one was my own build too, and it turned out perfectly. I'm a little scared to use it, it's so pretty. Then underneath, I've got some more stuff to make the space feel cozy, like my diffuser and my mini fridge. I pretty much exclusively use this to keep my portion of the beverages out of sight of my beverage goblin husband, because if he sees it, he will drink it. And then these storage bins are more art supplies, sculpture solids and sculpture liquids, and then my very essential space heater. And that's pretty much it. That's my studio. I'm looking forward to making a bunch of artwork in here. If you'd like to see what I make, please like and subscribe. I've only just gotten started, but I've got some big schemes. That's all for now. Bye, friend.